MJ Hegar, thank you so much.
Sure.
Really appreciate your time. How important are stops like these and others across North Texas and the state that you've been making the last couple of days?
This is everything. You know, I mean, we need to start holding our elected officials more accountable to actually being out with the people that they are representing. Right now, a lot of the problems, the dysfunction and the lack of, actually delivering on solutions that are impacting people's lives, the dysfunction that we're getting from D.C. is because people live in this little echo chamber bubble where they're not experiencing and they're not hearing from the people experiencing the actual challenges of regular everyday people. So, I mean, it's everything.
And what is your closing argument to voters as you crisscross the state?
We have an opportunity to elect somebody who, like myself, who has taken on really tough challenges and not been intimidated. I went to D.C. and built a broad bipartisan coalition to attack a problem that was making our military weaker, with the Joint Chiefs unanimously standing with me and fighting alongside me, and I was able to do that. I think that experience really matters. People like John Cornyn talk about their experience. We don't need more of his type of experience, of a career politician living in a privileged bubble. We need people who have experience serving their country, going to public school, working minimum wage jobs, being a mom. I spent 5 years working in healthcare. So I would agree that experience matters, but the type of experience that we have right now in Washington is, I don't know how much more of John Cornyn's experience Texas can even survive, frankly.
Texas Democrats have said that Latinos are really the key to the vote this year. Mm-hmm. What have you done to make sure that they get out and vote?
I mean, it's really important that we go out into every community across the state and earn everybody's vote, not just ask for their vote, not just expect their vote, not take their votes for granted. It's very important to have, Spanish language, phone banking and text messaging so that we're not just speaking to some people, but making sure that we have everybody an ability to hear what we're trying to do and to have an opportunity to ask questions of us in their chosen language, I think a lot of times candidates either take the Latino vote for granted or think that all they want to talk about is immigration. And I just think that it's been really important to get into communities and talk about creating jobs and talk about getting access to health care, because we're talking about people that are just like us. And I think that sometimes that gets lost in politics.
As you know, the Cook Political Report still gives this race, your race, an advantage to Senator Cornyn, even though...
A slight one. And when's the last time that happened, Jack?
In the presidential race, it is a toss-up.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, what is your message? How does that change your message, if at all, to Democrats that, not to give up in a sense?
I mean, I think polling in Texas is not traditionally very accurate, especially recent polling, because they're polling people that are reliable voters. And if you're polling people that have voted consistently in the past, then you're really polling the same small number of people who have been 49th or 50th in voter turnout that have been electing people like John Cornyn and Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott. So I don't think that the polling is really reflective of what's happening on the ground. It's always nice to see polls in your favor. It's always nice to see them within the margin of error, or as my friend Julie Oliver says, within the margin of hustle. I think it's not very smart for people like John Cornyn to side with the corporate special interest donors over the hardworking regular people, because we're going to outwork them. And that's what's happening right now.
My last question to you is, what do you believe the issues that are driving your race?
Healthcare, and healthcare. We had a healthcare crisis in Texas before the pandemic. The fumbled handling of this pandemic has shown us the lack of leadership from people like John Cornyn, but also has exposed the weaknesses in having a healthcare system that keeps so many people from having access. I mean, right now, because of record unemployment, 1 out of 3 working age Texans doesn't have access to healthcare. So this is a big part of why we can't get the pandemic under control and why we're leading the country in COVID cases in Texas, because people can't afford to keep going out and getting tested when they think they might have been exposed. Access to testing is critical for controlling this pandemic. But before the pandemic, the entire time John Cornyn has been a senator, we have been 50th in the nation for access to health care. That by itself, even if he had done a bunch of other great stuff, which he hasn't, that by itself is worthy of him losing this seat. I mean, if you had a CEO of a company that was dead last in something as basic as access to health care for the entire time they've been in office, and a third of that time he's been in office, he had a majority in the House and the Senate and the White House. I mean, if he wanted to do the things that his ads say he's going to do, like protect dreamers and protect pre-existing conditions, he would have done it by now.